stream here on lichess. Spieler. Classical players don't play for queen exchanges. What is up, guys? Good to see you. Acer, Spieler, Virat Carlson. Queen exchanges only if necessary. If no other option available. The romantic era of chess. Hey guys, what's up? So we're going to be going over the poll winner from yesterday's stream. The games of Adolf Anderssen, as well as some opening analysis today. We have a little over 2 hours and 10 minutes. Snuggles the Snail. That's an awesome emote. Thank you for that. I love your frog emote. Thank you, Snuggles, for watching. Cockatiri, Asterbait, Spieler, FIDE Master, and fellow chess streamer. Don't forget to check out Spieler's stream as well. He's not on that often. He's got a busy life, but when he does stream, let's follow him as well. Alright. So, I selected one game. We'll select another one or two, depending on how much time we have here. This was, I guess, relatively late game. Anderssen famously lost. It's kind of like Spassky's famous for losing to Fischer. Sadly, like Anderssen's most famous thing that he actually did in his career was lose his match against Morphy. But pretty much anybody would have lost against the amazing Paul Morphy in his prime. But he actually had a lot of accomplishments. Among them, I would note a very strong result in London 1851. He had some good results toward the end too, like in 1870, the year after this game, he finished in a tournament ahead of Steinitz and Blackburn. So he won Baden-Baden of 1870. And he had matches with other players where he won. He lost the match against Steinitz. So that was like kind of an unofficial... In a way, he was sort of like an unofficial world champion at one point after Morphy retired. It's kind of the way Karpov became world champion when Fischer quit. Karpov became world champion by default. You could say Adolf Anderssen was sort of unofficial world champion until he lost to Steinitz, who was considered to be the first world champion, essentially. Alright, so this game, without further ado, very romantic opening. E4, E5, Knight F3. That's why I like doing the Retro Masters. I grew up studying more hyper-modern modern chess, and I never really stopped to study the classics, and this is something that feels like it's really missing. You know, of course I've studied some classical games, but not to the degree a lot of people were brought up on this stuff. So my memory here and knowledge is not as great as some masters. This is Anderssen versus Zukertort, who was a great player, by the way. We should do a day where we study the games of Zukertort. He has one particular game that I really, really loved. I'd even memorized it at one point. Alright, Knight F3, Knight C6, Bishop C4, Asterbait attack. The Italian game, the Gioco Piano. Alright, Bishop C5, B4, Evans Gambit proper. So last week we went over some games of the Captain Evans. The of course creator of the Evans Gambit, the inspiration for the Evans Gambit. The original Evans Gambit, right, was castles, D6, B4. Virat Carlson, good repertoire to be able to play more than one thing there. That's a good idea. You want to keep people off balance. Don't be too predictable. Whatever your opening is. You know, you want to have 2 or 3 different lines. There was another player here, one of our friends and supporters of the stream, someone on sound. He's been playing the Evans, I think. But it's a popular opening at the club level. It never really was popular at the highest levels until Kasparov wheeled it out in the 90s out of nowhere. Kasparov has a number of games where he just sort of suddenly started playing the Evans Gambit. Jeroen Piquet, the great Dutch grandmaster, declined it with bishop b6 because he didn't know what to do. But the Evans is getting pretty well analyzed now. I think that black can equalize, maybe more than equalize, but it's still complex. So b4 and black accepts the pawn. I think this is clearly inferior to decline the Evans Gambit. Like most gambits, it has to be accepted. Vera Carlson, I never heard of Fischer playing the Evans. He believed that the Roy Lopez was best. I'm not an. I thought about it actually the other day. This went through my head that I could write a book on Fischer. I mean, frankly, I don't think a really great book on all of Bobby Fischer's games has been written. A really definitive book on Fischer would be an awesome project, but he had a pretty long career, and there's a lot of games he played a lot. It would require a lot of analysis, but I don't know. I mean, Fischer always played the Spanish with white, so bishop takes b4, c3, bishop a5, d4. So by the way, there's also bishop e7, and actually, we will see. Maybe not today, but if you analyze the games of players of this era, I think this is also a move. Bishop to d6. It's not considered great for obvious reasons. So you found 3 games where you played the Evans. All right, they must have been early or late. Fischer loved the Spanish, so it's true. Vera Carlson is right, but he didn't play it a lot. One against Ruben Fine. So early Fischer. Not that early, actually, 63. Yeah, pretty early. He also played things like the King's Indian attack, in the early stages. So, bishop a5, d4. Yeah, I mean, that will come into like a trivia question with how many world champions played the Evans Gambit. I didn't realize Fischer played the Evans Gambit at all. d4, e takes d4 now. So I like d6 here. I thought you said Fischer and Nunn played it. It's in a book I'm studying. It's in a book I'm studying for exams. I was like, wait, you have exams on the Evans Gambit? I need to get glasses. For Evans. Yeah. I've never studied the Evans. Actually, I don't think I ever saw a book on the Evans. But I gave up buying chess books a couple of years ago due to lack of logistics for transporting chess books over the ocean. I can't afford to get any more. If anyone knows a way to magically send 500 chess books over the Atlantic Ocean, let me know. Otherwise, my library is stuck in a container. So Joko and Evans book. Who's that by, Vera Carlson? Is it new? Or something older? I think there's probably some old book on Evans before my time, but I don't remember seeing any books written when I was really playing a lot. Probably there's some old Batzer book on it from years ago. My friend the Weed Master would have that. He has all the classics. Some kind of like 70s Evans book. Leonard Bardon, one of those British masters. Oh, this is relatively... that's pretty... So that's pretty obscure. Vera Carlson said Exeter Chess Club, published in 2004. So it's like an obscure, not massively produced book. Like a pamphlet or something. D4. Now, I don't like giving up the center here with e takes d4. That's my suggestion to play d6. This move effectively gives the pawn back. d6. See, like Nakamura Anand. Queen b3. Queen d7. D takes e5, giving the pawn back. So it's not like a macho way to play. You find Fischer's games with black more interesting than with white? As he played the King's Indian? Also the Benoni. And Grunfeld. But he also played the Nimzo, man. I mean, he played a lot of stuff, you know. He didn't just play the King's Indian. Alright. Yeah, I mean, he's a positionally correct player. He's aggressive. Very modern. d4, e takes d4, giving up the center here. This is Zukertort playing black. Castles. And I guess this is main line for this variation. You could play queen b3. So this is a famous variation. Nigel Short copied Kasparov and started playing the Evans Gambit at one point. This is like well after Kasparov started playing it in the 90s. But e takes d4. This feels like more direct, attacking f7. Acerbate, a new way of spelling it. So check this out. Attacking there, like this is a standard line, isn't it? Queen f6. Nigel Short in one of these like sort of pseudo matches for publicity. He played Kasparov. Not a real match in my opinion. Match of egos maybe. Queen e7, castles. Queen e7, one of the safer squares for the queen, as opposed to f6. The Grandmaster who shall not be named. Uh-oh, who's that, Acerbate? Alright, anyway, guys, let's just focus on the game here. Takes, castles, bishop b6. This is interesting, though. Very few games with bishop b6. Because if you think about it, it doesn't do anything. I mean, it seems like a minor thing, like the bishop, as opposed to like your king needing to get the hell out of the center. It doesn't seem urgent to play bishop b6 here for black. I mean, d4 is already lost. It's attacked twice. We're essentially like giving this pawn back. I mean, what would a materialistic player do? Like pawn takes c3, right? But I mean, let's just look at this for a second. What if black takes on c3? Just imagine black is super materialistic. In a way that's like more consistent for black, isn't it? Now we definitely want a pawn or two. What is white's attack based on here? Maybe bishop a3 and trying to open lines with like e5. Queen b3. That's about it, right? Yeah, let's see. What would happen if black took queen b3 and then tries to transpose to those ideas like queen f6? Man, black's score here is 0 out of 4. What? Why is it so deadly? You just take back on c3 and you have an initiative in exchange for the 2 pawns you sacrificed. But it still remains difficult to open black's position up after knight takes c3. Pushing pawn is the other option, but I wanted to look at this first. I would always prefer develop pieces than the hollow move like e5. Again, like white's score is 4-0 here. Funny that all the games are post 2012. But again, if we looked in ChessBase, I hate to say the word, it's like it feels like I'm saying Donald Trump. If we looked in a chess database and searched for games from this era, from the 1800s, we're going to come up with some hits. Sadly, if we're studying something like the Evans Gambit, the opening explorer on lichess is just, it's a disaster. I mean, all the master level games that were played in this opening over the last 150 years, like 90% of them are not in here. Because for some reason the people that make the opening explorer think that chess was invented in 1975 or 80. They're throwing away like 150 years worth of quality games by not putting those in there. So no, chess didn't start in 1980. Opening explorer creator. 2 pawns is a lot though, and like white needs a clear way through. I mean, the big threat is knight d5, but that's protected by the bishop. So I know that like Kashmaui suggests e5, but still we need a way to break through. You know, how do we break through here? The rooks can't bust into black's position, and without a pawn break, it's going to be hard to do. How do these guys win these games so easily? Bishop takes c3, queen c3. I mean, the most obvious move here for black is knight e7, I would think, or maybe d6, and neither of those played that move. I mean, that's weird. Wouldn't you think like d6 or knight e7? Instead, black played knight h6 twice and f6. Ben Feingold rolling over in his dreams right now, having nightmares about f6. Like, that's not a good move, master. That can't be like the number 1 move of the suggestion of the computer. So check this position out. 3 games, black failed to play the best move in all 3. Knight h6 is like minus 0.8 in white's advantage. And then the f6 I don't want to think about. Like, who played that move? Master. Who played this? What are you thinking? Alberto Francisco Dillenberg? Dude, I like f6 now and then, but I mean, this is like, how can that be right? When you have a solid developing move, or maybe d6, and you're playing f6 here? What? So Stockfish says it's equal. I'm not even like in the least surprised. I would play knight e7. I'm not sure that white has, you know, a definite advantage here. 2 pawns is a lot, I agree. So I just want to look at that. The other suggestion was takes queen f6, takes queen b3, queen f6, e5. Oh yeah, e5. Okay, but BFD, we're not taking it, you know. I'm not taking it. You're going to play queen g6. So here's another game. Dillenberg again. I have the feeling Dillenberg is like a bad correspondence player. Unthinkable. Knight takes c3. Knight e7. This is reasonable now. Bishop a3. Castle. It looks playable for black. Anyways, the game here was a retort. Black played bishop e6. Okay, I'm going to turn off the engine now. This looks... I don't know. It looks like it's slow. You know, you want to develop your king side. So white has the optimal pawn center. And by the way, Paul Morphy had a game very similar to this with white. I wanted to say that. I'm pretty sure. I remember maybe the same exact position. Morphy game. And now d5. Larry Rust. Correspondence. I remember Larry Rust was a 1900 bookseller who played the Black Mardemer against me in the tournament game. That was the first time and only time anyone's ever played the Black Mardemer in a tournament game against me. But the obvious problem with d5 is that it blocks the bishop on c4 and it doesn't contribute to white's development. You could possibly open the game though if you were to get in e5. So it's kind of counterintuitive. Normally we're playing for that diagonal. And so Anderson here plays d5. And now black has a lot of choices. Here, knight e7, knight b8. So, I mean, knight e5 appears like the logical move. Toward the center, if knight e5 we have a central pawn again. Although it could be dangerous, because this is mobile. Welcome everybody to the stream. International Master William Pascal. Please subscribe and support the stream if you can. Appreciate it. We're going over the games of Adolf Anderson. Maybe some opening analysis here a little bit later. So black played now knight e5. I mean, honestly, that gains time, but it leaves the knight on a horrible square. It just can't. It can't be the best move. Maybe the computer will prove me wrong. There's a Warakomsky game here. So he's, I don't know if he's a GM, but he's an IM for sure. I never met him, but a strong Polish player. I played his sister here in Hungary a couple years ago. I just mentioned that the other day. Last round draw. Knight b8, knight e7, or knight e5. Knight a5 looks bad. So this is very similar to a Morphy game, as I mentioned. So I think just bishop d3. I would preserve that bishop. And that's what Warakomsky did. But check him out now. Anderson sees, of course, that this bishop is protected by the queen check, so it's indirectly defended. My problem with this is, like, we don't want to trade pieces. I mean, in general, with an attacking position where we've sacrificed a pawn here, we don't want to allow any trade of pieces. I mean, do you want to let this guy trade your bishop on c4? Maybe it's not, though. I mean, if we're able to win the whole rook, nothing but the rook, so help you God, then it's not a trade of pieces. Maybe it's a good calculation. The threat's still in the air. The bishop could potentially get trapped. Here's our favorite idea of f6 again. But I mean, losing this whole rook on h8 is kind of expensive. So it's not really a mistake then by Zukertort. Knight takes c4 is not really a threat because this is too much material. So this one correspondence game here, black played knight f6. But there's no getting around the knight on a5. How are you going to get that back into the game properly? Black played knight f6. In the game, Wow. So Zukertort played knight e7, and he's offering the g7 pawn. But black's counting on counterplay along the g file if you take it. So that's a good question. I mean, is it better to play knight e7 or knight f6 here for black? Directly blocking the threat? Personally, again, I don't like knight a5. I just want to see what the engine says. I'm only on Stockfish 11. I don't have Fat Albert, but Stockfish 13, otherwise known as Fritz. It's amazing how close the engine is evaluating this. I just don't like knight a5 on principle. Apparently knight e5 is bad, but even that is playable. I was looking at stuff like queen h5. That loses to bishop d4. What a cute move. d6, opening the diagonal. No, so black has literally 4 moves in that position. What would you guys, we should do a poll. Mr. Coffee was here. Where would you put your knight? You have 4 choices. And it's like all 4 moves are playable. Even this is more attractive. Or knight b8. I'm not putting my knight on a5. Right now, I'm telling you. So, alright, d5 here, bishop e2, knight e7, now bishop d3, and that's it. Hello, Mr. Knight, how you doing? So, I'm with Warakomsky. This knight is bad, man. It could get trapped, but more importantly, it's like out of the game indefinitely. Black's only chance is maybe to play c5 or c6, but it's going to take a long time to get that knight back in the game. In the meantime, white has a kingside pawn majority and some attacking chances. Castles. Sada Masagana. a5 is illegal for obvious reasons. I don't like that knight. Alright, I mean, he is up 2 pawns. Excuse me, 1 pawn in this position. But, now knight c3. Where is this knight going? Are we going to take out the bishop with knight a4? Are we heading over here to e2? To greener pastures? Are we going to play e5 and, like, free up this square? See, this knight doesn't have as clear a path. This is covered. And then we'd have to play, like, rook e1, knight f1, which takes forever. So I guess knight c3 is a good move. Check out Warakomsky here. He played queen d2. The only game in the opening explorer. But it averts the pin with bishop g4. It gives you ideas of this. I think the main idea to get out of the pin. In case of bishop g4, you could even play, theoretically you play something to avoid exchanges. Knight c3, knight g6, and now we have a Gergo Antal game from 2019. That's unbelievable. Hungarian Grandmaster Gergo Antal, who I personally have a bad score against. I've lost to him twice. He was white both games, but still. I lost a painful game to him a couple of years ago. He's actually got a game here with this exact position by transposition. That is weird. So, Gergo Antal may be studying Zukertort and Anderson. Maybe more Anderson than Zukertort. Antal played knight a4. Look how his plan is different. Anderson's not interested in trading pieces. He just wants to transfer the knight to the kingside. That was the plan all along. Transfer the knight to the kingside to take part in an attack. Very classical. Whereas the modern player looks at that bishop on b6 as a long-range piece, takes it out, and figures he has positional compensation. I wouldn't be surprised if the computer would go with Antall's move. It loves bishops, a modern computer. For me, the problem is the knight on a5. I think the knight's a problem here, and Demer's move is pretty logical. But I mean, still that knight's not going to get back in the game. Like, where is this knight going to go? It's going to play. He's going to have to move the b pawn and bring it back to b7. This is how their game went. Eventually, Black gave back a pawn to free his knight with b5. So it became like a completely positional sort of game. Very different from what we'll see here, I guess, from Anderson. What does the Oracle say? The Oracle prefers the modern master's move. But again, it's close. I think it's a matter of style. You know, romantic players of this generation, he's aiming at a kingside attack. And certainly Garrigo Antall didn't get a brilliancy prize for his technical win against Demer there. Knight e2, c5, queen d2. This seems to be a very typical idea, played in all three games we've seen. Now f6 in the spirit of Ben Feingold. This is great though. Okay, what do we do? How do you attack Black's position? It's like a rock. He's got e5 guarded. This is again Anderson versus Zukertort, 1869 in Barman. It looks like the only way to attack Black would be a Benoni style plan with like f4, breaking it up with e5. That's the only sort of normal solution here. Especially after f6, we attempt to play f4 and e5. King h1, maybe preparing to move the f pawn, right? Bishop c7, it's the snake Benoni. a6, b5. Guess what? You know, that knight might live to go to b7 and back to c5. But it's really Black's like doing acrobatics on the queen side. But eventually now it's going to matter because these three pawns, he has a 3-on-1 majority on the queen side. It's a Benoni basically. So check this out now. White plays rook c1. He wants to prevent c4 and make sure he's got the Asterbait maneuver. Asterbait, are you paying attention? Your favorite pattern of bishop b1 with the rook unobstructed, rook c1. Like, I don't think I would have had the patience to play that move here. Rook c1, rook b8, preparing b5, and that's it. Like, he now can't stop it, the Benoni. So check it out. Honestly, I wanted to move my knight and play for f4, e5, but it's just too slow. It looks like Black has counterplay. So he does this, transferring the knight to the king side, and now b5. This Benoni looks okay for Black, honestly. And Zukertort is a very strong player. Merche the best. Rating of the party 41. Yes, what's up? We're analyzing the games of Adolf Anderssen. Well, a couple of them anyway. I've got 30 minutes follower mode on. If you guys join us due to troll. We had some troll issues. Welcome. Thank you for the raid. I didn't see you streaming earlier. Did you just start streaming? Oh, you were streaming, yeah. You and, was Tranquilizer on? Actually, you were streaming. I would raid you, but I had no viewers when I came on, so I didn't want to raid you with 4 viewers. What's up? Is Tranquilizer also streaming? Let me see. Guys, check out Mercea's stream. I call him Mercea the Beast. GM versus viewers challenge. Welcome to the viewers from the Beast stream. Was I crazy to think that Tranquilizer was streaming too? I guess that was just yesterday. I guess Levante was streaming yesterday, and I somehow thought it was this morning. Still not awake yet. Good morning. He's 1 hour later. So they've been awake for an hour longer than me already. So we're taking a look here. Much thanks for the raid. Guys, please follow Grandmaster Mercea Parleygrass. So, also Tranquilizer, our friends from the streamer battles on Sunday. Grandmaster, and also not only Grandmaster, but I think a really instructive streamer. Both Levante and this guy are two of the better streamers on lichess, analyzing a lot of serious stuff. So I do tune into their streams. Alright, got allergies. This is Anderson versus Zuckertor. It looks like black has good counterplay on the queen side. So I'm not sure if white has enough attack for this pawn. And I'm not sure how white's going to break black's position. Asprey, please report any trolls. Got your back, man. So knight f5. The problem is there's no way to break the position with pawns. You did the banhammer? I think people need to learn, like, their actions have a consequence. They should take responsibility for their actions, for their own actions, instead of blaming other people. Maybe if they didn't troll, they wouldn't get banned. Duh. So knight f5. It's complicated. But knight f5, what's the idea, right? There it is. Rook g1. So what I'm saying is, like, basically white can't win with pieces alone in this position. Grandmaster Jesse Cry says that pawns are not people. But I disagree. Don't feel bad about blocking people, Asterbate. There's a lot of trolls on the internet. You know, we have to ignore them as much as possible and report the behavior. Don't feel bad about it. So white needs a way to break black's position, but there's no f4, it takes too long, and there's nowhere to move our f3 knight to play for the f4 break. If I could play f4 in this position, I would. Right? I mean, that's, I think, the best way to break down black's position. But we can't do it. So what's the next best thing? He plays knight f5 and then uses the g pawn. The other thing that bothers me here is c4. Like, for example, if white were to play g4 right away, there's c4, bishop c4, knight c4, rook c4, and then bishop a6. We can get skewered on this diagonal. So I think that Anderson's move has sort of dual purpose here. He plays rook g1. This avoids c4 winning the exchange when he captures twice on c4. Getting the rook off the f1 square. Now, I don't know what black should do. The other problem is, like in the Benoni, if you play c4, you give up the d4 square, which is a huge outpost for the white knight. This is such a classic Benoni idea. You've got to be very careful when you push that pawn to c4. Also in the benko, any kind of structure based on c5 for black against the d5 wedge pawn, when you make this move, you don't have, well, not any position, okay? Like the Czech Benoni, you'd have a pawn on e5. But in the modern Benoni or the benko, particularly, when black plays c4, you're giving up the d4 square. Got to be very careful. So this move is kind of weird. I mean, he's starting what exactly? Nothing really. You know, he never played f4. That diagonal's not weak. Black's I guess in trouble here. What about sacrificing a pawn? It's just like take, rook takes. And we got our pawn back with huge outpost squares on c6. There's also the c file. White has more space. This is impressive. It looks like white is better. So let's check with the oracle. Wow. Black is better according to the computer. b3. I missed this. I was only thinking about c4. c4 is clearly bad. But he has b3. And even this, according to the engine, is surprisingly fine for black. I mean, you know, it's hard to understand not playing that, though. I know that we're going to lose the white square control. But after this move, this eventually happens, but he waits too long to make the capture. Plays b4, rook g1, bishop e6, and now g4. See, that's the problem. If you take right away, and this happens in the Sicilian sometimes, white has to take with the e-pawn. Now it's too late. Like, you let the knight sit on f5 too long, and so this is going to be opened up. He was definitely better off taking on f5 earlier. Now taking with the g-pawn is going to open the g-file for white. The bishop d3 is dead, but I mean, both sides have bad bishops, Sadamasa. You don't have to worry about it too much. The side with more space is better off, so our bad bishop is better than his bad bishop because we have more space to work behind. I mean, we control this much space, right? If you draw sort of, you know, this is the... White controls like 6/10 of the board here. 6.5. 65% of the board is under white's control. And like 35% of the board is under black's control. So the bad bishop that has more space is superior. In other words, like, yeah, both sides have bad bishops. But I think black's is worse than white's. I mean, at least we have this diagonal. Whoa. Check this out. What just happened? What did I do? So, this diagonal, man, is not that bad. It has a lot of mobility. Hey, world loser. Compare our bad bishops. Like Sadamasa's comment is true. Our bad bishop is bad, but how bad? Our bad bishop is only bad in one direction. Like his bishop on b6 is ridiculous, right? Because of the space. Look at this. Hey, his bishop can go to one square. Plus he has the problem with the knight on a5. No, I think this is the moment where it became like clearly better for white. When black misses his last chance to take on f5 and force white to take with the e-pawn, and yes, our bishop is bad, but the moment that white plays g4, now I think white is better. That's where the game really, that's where it really turns. Now the pawn isn't as important as white's space advantage in this. Look at the leverage we have on g7. the threat of playing g5 or maybe sacrifices on g7 here. It's still not that easy to attack him, though. This is why you never give up your strong point. I mean, honestly, seriously, I don't mean to be too dogmatic, but let's go back to, where was it? Move 6, right? But I mean, when you give up your strong point on e5, this is the consequence 20 moves later, or whatever. You don't have a pawn on e5 anymore. It's so fundamental. Extremely important to think about the long-term ramifications of doing that. That's why I like this better, d6, if you can support your strong point. If black had a pawn on e5, none of the following would have happened. We'll see next. So, g4, now knight e5. And this is interesting. Normally, I would say knight takes e5 for white, keeping the bishop. The problem is, the position is so locked. I would not know what to do here with white. I would probably play bishop e2, or maybe knight takes e5. But Zukertort surprises us. I mean, it's an interesting question. Maybe we have f4, don't we? This actually looks alright. Black will probably take with the f pawn. I mean, don't we have a strong attack here? There is this. And that diagonal. So perhaps white can prepare it with like rook g3 or something like that. But I mean, that's the way I would recapture or capture here. Is Zukertort, I mean, is Anderson doing the right thing by playing bishop takes e5? This is a surprising move. For me, I love bishops. Well, if you study Tartakover's book, 500 Mastery Games of Chess, you're in good shape. That's a good way to introduce yourself to the chess classics. Thanks again to Martea the Best with a raid of 41 players. Welcome to all of you guys if you're from his stream. And Cash Maui with a 100-bit donation. Appreciate it. I appreciate you guys for subscribing, being part of the stream. Have you ever looked at Connect 4 game at stream? I mean, they have like literal Connect 4 troll. I always joke about Connect 4 on the chessboard. I don't think I ever actually played much Connect 4. But this is seriously a tough one. The bishop looks blocked, but I mean, if the structure falls, it's all over. If we get an f4, it's all over. In other words, like here, rook g3. If this happens and that bishop comes to life, you can like say your last rites or whatever for black's position. Hishmatulin. No, get 500 Master Games of Chess. If there was one book that I had, Lord Blitza, on a desert island, that would be it. There was no internet, only one chess book and a chessboard. f4 is not possible. It's illegal. Well, f4 immediately, I'm afraid, walks into c4. If that's what you're talking about, we're a loser. That's what I was afraid of. But I want to play for f4. Of course, black might take this way, which is what happened in the game. You know, maybe that also is a better defensive try. Keeping this pawn, keeping the pawn fortress a little stronger around the black king. You could say like taking this way maybe like weakens black's king side. G6 can be played. You know, it's... Speaking of 500 Master Games of Chess World Loser, I don't know if you've ever studied that book. But in 500 Master Games of Chess, there's like classic Roy Lopez games where white sacks a knight on f5. The oldest, some of the really old Roy Lopez variations. Maybe we'll just leave it on f5 for these attacking chances along the g file. That could be like a positional knight sacrifice, actually. You know, like rook g3, rook g1. It looks like something straight out of Roy Lopez knight sack. Maybe we just move it away. Long-term piece sacrifices like that. I bet you the computer goes for knight takes e5 here. Does anybody want to bet? Don't cheat, okay? This is like honor system. I'm gonna say the engine is gonna say knight takes e5. Stockfish likes bishops. I like bishops better too. I think I'm also not sure where the f3 knight's going after this. So I expect bishop takes e5 isn't the number one move. See? Exactly what we figured. Knight e5 is the main move. Bishop e5 is secondary. But not by much. One pawn. I think this is it's dropping. This is a mistake. Maybe he's like Anderson didn't love bishops enough. He didn't have enough faith in his bishop on the long diagonal. So yeah, I'll take a look at that. Timofeyev versus Kishmatulin. If I can. Knight takes e5 is better. Computer is saying takes, and rook g2 instead of rook g3, maybe to guard this. And now we're threatening f4. So I'm surprised by this move. Where is this knight going? Basically, Zukertort maybe thinking, okay, it's a closed position. Knights are better than bishops in closed position. But I think this is a big mistake. I mean, that's a powerful bishop he's trading. Why not f takes? I just don't see... Okay, one idea here. The idea of going in here on the white squares. I mean, we can get this, and then here, and effectively reach what might be essentially an opposite colored bishop sort of scenario, where white has the initiative. Maybe it's better. Maybe white is better. So, for two reasons, I'm surprised by this move. First of all, well, one reason really. It just gives white a protected passed pawn on d5. I mean, I guess Zukertort was more concerned about his king's safety. But that's a very powerful pawn. Passer. Maybe it is the right move. I wouldn't be surprised if the computer says DE. It's close, and Stockfish is almost on the fence about it. Wow. It's so close, it's almost inseparable. Both captures. Valid here. F takes E was winning at the end, though. Slightly. I would play F takes E. I am a little worried about knight g5. Here, rook g3. And so, where is this knight going? That's my problem. Knight f3, no squares. Unless we can play g5 and give it some squares. Or maybe this. You know, that's our plan. Queen e2, knight d2, knight c4. Trying to blockade the white squares. Rook f7, g5. Uh-oh. Bishop takes f5, pawn f5, and now queen takes d5. There's nothing dangerous about that move. As I was saying earlier, opposite colored bishop positions become very dynamic. So I think Black had better. He was overly optimistic, or shall we say, he underestimated White's chances here. It doesn't look like Black had to do this. I mean, admittedly, the knight on f5 is pretty strong, though. I mean, I'm definitely taking with the f pawn. I prefer this. All right, knight g5 is the problem there. We have takes, rook g3, rook f7. Again, like kind of a passive move, rook f7. But what do you want him to play? It's hard for Black to get active counterplay here. You know, what do you suggest for Black in this position with no active counterplay? His queenside majority maybe has that b3 thing again. I mean, this diagonal looks like it could be an accident waiting to happen, but I'm not exactly sure how that plays into it. How do you take advantage of it? Yeah, I mean, clearly, like, I'm sorry, I just jumped back. This position. Sorry if I made anyone seasick there. I'm saying b3. You're looking at c4. But I mean, here we're eating the pawn, and White now gets through on the c file. Black might have some counterplay, but b4, yeah, something like this is possible. Not clear. Black has to make up his mind, but I think playing more actively. This looks really passive. Rook f7, g5, and now it looks like g6 is a threat, honestly. Seriously. g6 opening the position there. So something like king h8 might not help. Even king f8 might be. Maybe king f8 is our best chance. But I'm not liking Black's position here. I mean, takes, queen takes, knight g5. It's all falling apart, it looks like. It's not clear what Black can do. Once White gets in g5, he seems to be in trouble. So take. What if, does he have to take this pawn here on d5? I mean, it's tempting, but look. The end of the game is amazing. Rook d8, rook g1, king h8. He wants to hide behind this pawn. F takes g7 check, king g8. Now obviously this diagonal looks dangerous. Queen h6. So much for that plan. The human shield approach didn't work, unfortunately. It was a bad judgment. Zukertort thought he had a defensive fortress, but it's more like a house of cards. I like how the knight never moved from a5. and Sadamasa's theory about the bad bishop, it's very Lasker-like. The sort of overused quote I have: pieces that are blocked in the whole game, they are very angry when they come out. This bishop is on the verge of a volcanic explosion here. At any moment it could just like light Black up on the white squares. It just didn't quite get into the game, but it was about to before Black got capitulated. I guess he didn't see it. Queen d6. And this bishop plays a role in the final assault. So without the bishop, it doesn't work. So at the end of the day here, we've got equal material, opposite-colored bishops, but everything broke through on the black king side. The point is, queen h7 check, and black resigns, because after king takes, rook h3, this. And you're controlling g8. So, if rook d3, queen, 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 all the way pieces worked. Yeah, I mean, it's not a perfect game, but it's very elegant. I mean, that's the thing about this game that I liked. Probably one of his most famous games. Thanks for sending that game over, Troll. Alright, let's add one more game here. Something classic. From Anderson. Okay, I mentioned the tournament I thought was most impressive in 1870 when he beat, or when he finished ahead of Blackburn and Steinitz at that age, late in his career. This is Anderson. In Baden-Baden. Let's see. I'm going to pick a game from that tournament. There's tons of games. He had a fairly long career, 35 years or so. So let's see. Anderson, Winnower. Steinitz, Anderson, 0-1. Or Anderson, Steinitz, Evans, Gambit. Let's check that. It's a theme for today. Evans, Gambit, mainline. Adolf Anderson versus Steinitz. Let's grab this game. Looks like Hubner analyzed this. Imagine that. Robert Hubner, Egyptologist. Alright, let me grab this game. Put it in the study to share. I just leave these studies open for everyone. Normally my studies are private, but the Wednesday stream studies I'm going to leave open for everybody. Anderson versus Steinitz. Who was he? And this is from 18, it's hard to say that, 1870 in Baden-Baden. However you say that. Baden-Baden. It's so weird to say that. Not being a German speaker. Alright. Bad Weisse. Save chapter. So this is another game from the year after. I think that's an impressive win. 1870 against these guys. He started playing chess when he was 9, Asterbate. That's very young for that stage. So we got another, this is Steinitz Black. We've got another Evans Gambit. B4, bishop takes B4, C3, and now Steinitz played bishop C5. Interesting. So traditionally this was always considered bad. That game that we just saw in the other game is turning out to be this move order. So this guy, I think he's like a Swiss guy, Dermer, played against Gergo Antal, bishop c5. I mean, normally you don't do this. I'm not sure. I guess just as a surprise thing. In those days, the theory of the Evans Gambit was still relatively incomplete, you know. I mean, normally Steinitz didn't do this. Bishop a5 is respectable. Bishop e7 is actually called the Anderson variation. This is asking for trouble. So we got the same line. d4. I mean, now there's no option to maintain the center. So you're giving up the center right away. Now the idea is, I guess, if white takes with the pawn, black has time to exchange pieces. Would he play bishop e4 check, or would he go back to b6? I mean, I assume white has the ability to play this, right? Guys, we're going to analyze this game, and then we're going to move over to some opening analysis. So if anybody has a suggestion for the opening we're going to analyze today, or opening theory we're going to analyze today, send it over me. Send it over me. Think it over. All right. Well, I mean, pawn takes pawn, right? What's the point? Bishop e4 check? This guy, Dermair played this, and so we transposed to game 1. Which should be okay for white, obviously. But it's interesting that in this game, Anderson doesn't even take. He plays more aggressively in castles, giving black the chance to play something like takes on c3. This is a problem. Alright. So this is another disadvantage of bishop c5 here. You don't have the option. If your bishop's on a5, you can play d takes c, which we looked at, and it's possible. Here it looks like it's very dangerous because of this Danish gambit style stuff. Now black's king is unsafe for the rest of the game. It's basically a Danish thing. I'll have a cheese Danish, please. I mean, this is unsafe. Although you do trade some pieces, white has a very strong pawn on e4, and black's king is not safe, so long as the queens are on the board. I wouldn't want to play that with black. So that gives him less options. He could play bishop e6. That would make sense, right? Though kind of a time loser. Instead, Steinitz plays d6. Alright, at least this is a constructive move. cd4, bishop e6. And so now we're going to transpose, virtually transpose. Except Steinitz is not down with putting his knight on a5. See what I said? I swear I didn't prepare this. I guess I've studied too much principled chess. I mean, Steinitz was very principled. So I agree, man. I'm not putting my knight on a5 like Larry Rust, or no. Whoever. Sorry, this is the options. Even knight b8 is better than knight a5 in my opinion. Here, we've got a little bit of congestion with the two knights on g8 and e7. And can white take advantage of that? The real question. What should white play now? So this was a huge tournament in 1870. Steinitz was like amazing. Blackburn was strong. And this guy, Adolf Henderson, wins the tournament. Not easy to do in his older years. He died at 60, but that, I guess, that was wasn't so bad back then. What's up, James? Considering there was no like antibiotics in 1870, living to 60 wasn't such a bad accomplishment. Now you don't see to e7, e5. I'm wondering, should white do this or not? Acerbate, what do you think? I prefer to develop my pieces than play e5. But white does need to open the position at some point. I guess bishop e2, right, is very natural. I mean, what's our concern? Is it knight f6 or f6? Is he going to strong point us, Ben Feingold, here? Are we afraid of f6? Is that what's going on? Man, check this square out. See, that's the problem with trading off your strong point. I mean, at some point, knight d4 is coming. Man, what about knight f6? I think I like that better. This has got to be better than f6, right? This is no problem. Hey, give me your dark square bishop. Done. This is okay for black. It looks like the Sveshnikov. I like this, actually. Dark square bishop. Big deal. I'm not castled. It looks like after knight f6, black's okay. So maybe Anderson is right. Although it's also not a big deal. Whatever. Should black take? Maybe he doesn't have time. Wow. I just assumed black could take. Can he take and play like knight g6 maybe? Let's say takes. Takes. This looks slow. I'm worried about f7. I want to hit this knight before it does any damage. Maybe black's okay here. Wow, apparently not. Maybe black's not okay. Damn, it's over. It's immediately over. Takes, takes, check, knight e7, bishop a3. That's not okay. Wow, so he has no time. So he has to play like knight h6 or knight f6. Knight f6, d6. See, this is what I wasn't sure about. Apparently this is critical. Knight f6, d6, queen d6, and this is hanging. White has interesting play. So it looks like it all hinges on that. e5 is the best move. Exactly. If bishop b2, knight f6, black's out of the woods. This was actually best move by white. And so I think it's risky for Steinitz to leave that pawn on board with e6 in the air. He plays knight h6 here. But I'm like, you know, very, very afraid with that pawn duo up there. Steinitz just chilling with the pawns on e5 and d5. Is e6 nothing? Too slow? Bishop h6. I feel like white has something serious here. But he has to be accurate. Bishop a3 is possible. But I guess black king will get away. Castle's kingside. So there's no bishop a3. So Anderson just develops. Knight c3. Castles. I mean, he could have played bishop takes h6 right away. But the problem is, it's a valuable attacking piece. Gone. I don't know. You know, you don't really want to trade that bishop for the knight on h6. I guess after castles, though, it's a lot more tempting. And he has ideas of knight e4, knight f6, maybe. That's what happened in the game. Steinitz thought he could survive. Obviously, Steinitz didn't miss this. He's safe, relatively safe on the dark squares, like in the corner. He could bring the bishop to f5, maybe. Steinitz was a tremendous defender. So he saw this and figured he could hold it. D takes. Knight f6 check alone. is not that much of a threat. Black can play king g7 or king h8. Both seem playable. Check, king h8. Obviously, you have queen d3, bishop f5, just guarding the h7 pawn. It's not so easy for Anderson to break through. A little bit of Captain Evans style here. Knight takes e5. Those knights are spry. Now there's two knights and a bishop in the equation, and possibilities of d6. Wow. Fixes his structure. Man, black got out of it. Wow. I don't think the white has anything. Except for, like, down a pawn. So white missed something here. Seriously, he messed up. It just doesn't work. Wow. So how does he get lucky? This isn't good enough. Steinitz gets overconfident. Take, knight e4, f5. Is that necessary, master? I'm happy to be up a pawn. Black is completely safe. But this is risky. f5. That's a cocky move. Weakening your king position. Black's definitely better here. He plays f5, perhaps misses this move, threatening this with a mating attack if you take on e4. Guys, we're going to start opening analysis after this game. I've got half an hour followers enabled. Thanks for staying with us. King h7. Black is winning, but weakened his position slightly with f5. This wasn't Anderson's best game. Knight c3. Now black is a pawn up with a bishop pair. Though his king is not as safe. He has to be careful. Queen f6, rook e1, bishop d7, d6. Uh-oh. This is a problem. The passed pawn is a criminal that must be kept under lock and key. This is not a passed pawn, though. So that doesn't really... that doesn't count, but whatever. Gives up the blockade, let's say, of that pawn. Breaks through to d6. Overconfidence. He never should have played f5, is my opinion. You know, but I guess there are threats. This and this. This is pretty big. If black wanted to, he could have played bishop f5, for example. Like a simpler and less committal defensive move. I think that Steinitz is going to regret moving that pawn up. He has like a much riskier king position after f5. There's no way he should have missed queen d2 though, because that's like white's biggest idea in this position. Queen d2, queen c3, knight check. At least here though, you can play f6 if you have to. That's kind of important, you know. But there's no way that white should have won this game. He was busted. f5, queen d2, king h7, knight c3. He's gone on retreat. But black has to be very precise. And I guess Steinitz was a little bit on overconfident mode. Queen f6, rook e1, bishop d7, d6. And now I'm concerned. Rook a e8. D takes C7, and we can't recapture. He just dropped a piece. And B7's falling. Maybe we can defend with black still. How about Queen C6? The question is, can black even defend this position? Bishop takes C7 loses a piece. How about Rook E7 or something? Normally Steinitz is a very strong defender. We have this. Oh man. That wins the exchange. Rook E7, Queen G8. This was 1870. Anderson's last major tournament victory ahead of Blackburn and Steinitz. Steinitz got cocky here, and he was better, and now he's like lost after B takes C7 or D takes C7. I don't see a defense. Queen G7 was suggested by Dongers. Maybe that does work. Double attack on C7. I mean, normally you would rely on Steinitz for a good defense. Though in those days it was different, you know. This was early Steinitz. He was more aggressive. In his later years, he was the quintessential tough defender. Maybe he didn't have the defensive skills built up as much yet, but this might work. Wait, you're saying that bishop takes c7 works? Check. Queen g7. This was the game. I didn't realize. I thought it was over. He's not winning a piece, though. Alright, so he's not interested in queen takes e8, obviously. He has rook takes. Huh. I mean, so how bad... I don't get it either. How bad is this? Queen d7. This can't be that bad, right? Black was okay here. Oh man. Yeah. He was okay here. He did the other move order though. Bishop takes h2 check first. That's like unnecessarily fancy. It's probably fine. Alright. So basically it's equal. Dynamically equal. Somehow Steinitz went on to lose this, but I mean, objectively, it's probably harder to play for white than it is for black. I mean, rook f7 is a pain. Oh, there's something wrong with the game, man. Is there something wrong with the game score? That's not good. We might have to bail on this. This is clearly... Oh, no, that's right. Okay. Yeah, rook f7 doesn't work. It's not wrong. Okay. Rook b1, queen d4, rook b7 check, bishop g7, rook f7. Damn. Check here, check here, check, bishop f1. Okay. That's it. Yeah, it doesn't look like black should have lost. Bishop h2 seems kind of fancy. He should have played rook e8. And now he's fine. Okay, it's a little scary, but he was fine. It was an unnecessary loss. So this wasn't the best game, maybe, to go over, but it was still interesting. Bishop h2 check, king h1, queen d7, rook f8. Can black not save himself now? Here. Threat is rook f7. Still, feels like there should be a way for black to survive. Queen d4 is best move. Wow. So here he started checking, and it just doesn't do anything. Damn. So he was holding after h5. Still a draw. Rook takes g7 check. There's no obvious perpetual. That's the weird thing about it. But this is a threat, right? Threatening to threaten perpetual with queen f2. That's amazing. I mean, understandably, Steinitz missed this, thinking like it was too slow or something. Basically, white has a free move. He's up a piece, and he still can't win. But that's, again, it's hard to coordinate with those minor pieces, or pieces for the queen. It's hard to coordinate the pieces together. Yeah, surprisingly, there's just no way to stop this like perpetual with... And black does have 2 pawns for the sacrificed material. Those pawns are pretty strong. There's no mate against the black king. It's just a draw. Alright guys, we're going to do some opening analysis. Dongers, welcome. See Master Tom around? Alright. We're going to do some Wednesday opening analysis. I've got 45 minutes left. Someone suggested the note boom variation. Any other suggestions? We had a raid earlier from Merchea. Thanks for that. Welcome guys to the stream. You was in a tournament with Tom and Peter and some other Pennsylvania title players on lichess. Yeah, I remember Peter Minier. I don't know the other guy. But live chess is still a ways distant, I guess. That's cool though. So Schieberspieler, I heard you might play. That's cool. How boring are Bishop B5 Sicilians? That's an excellent. Asterbait, thanks for the donation. That's an excellent suggestion. 100-bit donation from Asterbait. Thank you, man. Thanks for the support. Also, Cash Maui earlier. We got an Oculus Rift S. I was playing VR games with my son. I was thinking of streaming some VR games. If chess doesn't work. I wish there was a cool VR chess program. It's just ridiculous that there isn't. I mean, all this popularity, 120,000 people playing on lichess, and you can't even get a real chess program in VR. How cool would that be? If a developer... There's so much potential there. Chess is going through this huge boom, and there's no good VR chess programs. Imagine if they could have tournaments with VR. Of course, okay, I understand. Most people don't have a VR headset, like 1 in 100 or something. But I mean, over the course of the next 10 years, it could grow. It's a cool concept. It would be a great way to stop people from cheating. But some developers gotta come up with a VR chess program. They have one. What's it called? There's a really crappy one. I don't remember. I tried it, but it's very weak. All right, guys. Let's take a look at the Sicilian with Bishop B5. Schieberspieler Master in Residence. I like G6. What's your analysis here, Schieberspieler? My son, he doesn't really play. He knows how to play a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I don't really force anybody to learn. If they want to learn, they can learn. But I hate chess parents who are overbearing. I've known a lot of people who forced their kids to play chess and they were just made it not fun. So I only play chess if they want to learn. He's 11, almost. Let's see, 11. Is that right? Yeah, he's 11. I don't remember my own age half the time. I started around that age. Bishop B5. $39. So let's check this out, right? Bishop G7. Castles. Bishop G7. Now, Schieberspieler. There was Bishop takes C6 by RVK. Who's RVK? Virat Carlson? Yeah, he gets called by RVK. Come on. He's not famous enough to be called by his initials. It's just... You have to be in the top 10. You're 59 this month. Bishop takes e6, I mean, it makes a lot of sense in the e6 lines, but I don't really get it here. But it's playable. Alright, let's seriously think about this. It's just hard to say his name. He's not in the top 10. MVL should be in the top 10. That's just not right. Alright. So we got 3 moves. Schieberspieler has to play all 3 to keep people off balance. Let's look at this. So, I'm not really looking to play D takes C6, It's insipid. I would prefer to play B takes. Yeah, the Tata Steel had a bad tournament and probably hurt his standing. He's saving up his analysis for the candidates tournament. And the FFL is now in the top 100, right? Kamsky's not even in the top 100, probably. Bishop takes c6. I'm definitely not in the top 1,000. So B takes c6. I would prefer to play that. Carlsen, Nakamura, Kasparov. I'm down with this. All right. So it's interesting, though. When you look at this position, you see how, like, more players play D takes c6? But that's like a wimpy move. Taking away from the center. I mean, one of the ideas maybe to give away your bishop with bishop g4. I would prefer to play this. What do you think, Schieberspieler? Underranked. At least I'm still in the top 5,000. After giving away all my rating points to little kids with draws. I think I should lose like another 30 rating points and try to find some big cash prizes for under 2,300, as if they exist. Yeah, this is more enterprising. So, I don't understand c3. Let's look at rook e1. Now, what do we do? I mean, I guess the idea is knight h6. This is what I was looking at a while back. It looks weird to put your knight on h6. But if knight f6, e5, knight d5, I guess this is possible too. So what do we like better here? Rook e1. That's it though. There's no other move. I mean, well, let's see though. You could do the f6. Robert James against Spassky, 1992. Voria. RJF with white here. I know that f6 looks ugly, and Ben Feingold says you should never play that, but what does Spassky know, you know? He didn't understand. Ben Feingold said you're not supposed to play f6. Seriously. Even this move is playable. Rook b8, the waiting move, with a subtle threat. I mean, the question is rook b8 really worth it? You know, your king is still in the center of the board. Do we have time to be messing around with stuff like rook b8? Yeah, dude, I lived through that match. I wasn't interested even in the least in watching, you know. It was cool in a way, but it was like a one-way thing. You know, it's interesting to see Fischer play, but nobody cared about Spassky. You've got to understand, if you're younger, I was, you know, adult in 1992. Spassky was a non-entity in 1992. I mean, a lot of people, maybe now you're a young player, you're 20 years old or whatever, you think that Spassky was a non-entity. He hadn't played chess for 10 years, practically. He was more out of practice than Fischer was. I mean, Fischer was playing like secretly, analyzing a lot. Spassky like retired in 1980, 83. I mean, as far as like really playing chess goes. So that was it wasn't a real match. What do you mean? I'm 39. In 92, I would have been... Let's see. If I'm 39, what year was I born in? See, I look younger. I can't be 48. Talking about... There's no way that Virat Carlson... Even if I am older than 39, there's no way that Virat Carlson's statistics are right. See, I was born in 1981. So in 92, I was an adult. That makes sense, right? Damn. That doesn't make sense? That sucks. Did I say that? I meant in 2002. Sorry. Alright, anyway. So I was taking knight h6. I looked at this. c3. So this is the question, Sheever. Do you like c3 or h3 now? H3 doesn't seem necessary. Why is it necessary to play h3 here? Am I going to just like put my knight on g4? So c3. We can still do the Spassky. Maybe that was Spassky's actual move order. No, according to the game... I don't know which game this was, by the way. If you want to look back on it historically, Fischer never played the Rossolimo. Okay, that was one of the sensations of his match with Spassky. You know that Bobby Fischer played the King's Indian attack occasionally, but he never played the Rossolimo, as far as I can recall. Although he likes the Spanish, so it wouldn't be that out of character, at least stylistically. But Fischer loved the white side of the Sicilian. We loved both sides of the open Sicilian. So there's no way that Spassky could have seen like the Rossolimo coming. But I don't know, this was the first game. There was more than one. I think the first game was some kind of wing gambit style thing for white. So maybe this is like the second game, or they had more than one that was a Rossolimo. Maybe Spassky was prepared after the first game. But I don't really know if I trust f6. Do we have to play f6? I guess we're going to have to play f6 at some point, yes. To bring the knight back to f7. Castles is okay. So now, what do you like, Schieberspieler? Is it necessary to play h3? f5 plans? Does Ben Feingold... Is that okay to do f5? I don't think I'm I don't think I'm worried about f5. I mean, I don't think I'm going to do f5 unless really circumstances are great. So let's see the main line. d4, cd4. This is what I looked at before. cd4, cd4. But I analyzed, I guess, f6 here. There we transposed to Fischer-Spassky. Something about d5 looks really committal for black. Gelfand. That's a good sign. Recent games by Dubov. Interesting. We're playing it like a hyper-accelerated dragon. Maybe black has bishop g4. Is this going to transpose? It does, doesn't it? Oh my god. It looks like it transposes to the hyper-accelerated dragon. I never thought about that. Yeah, I mean, anything that Gelfand does is okay. I would just like copy his repertoire to clipboard and like put it in my chess base, and I'm just like figuratively speaking. If Gelfand played it, it's okay. All right, let's say this is a line. I looked at f6, knight c3, d6. I love this pawn wall here. h3, and then like knight f7. This may look really abstract, but black's fairly solid in this position. That was the way I planned to play. Playing eventually for c5. So I looked at something like bishop d7, and then eventually trying to push my c pawn, I guess. I know it doesn't look very exciting, but it's surprisingly solid. Well, yeah, I mean, I call it the ghost bishop. That's the entire point of all these Rossolimo positions, what a lot of people don't understand. I've played the black side of this for a long time. I mean, the Sicilian in general. Any kind of Rossolimo, we can end up with a piece that just doesn't function. You know, maybe an endgame with knight versus bishop on c8 is just favorable to white, for example. You have a knight on c3 versus bishop on c8. Take all the pieces off the board with a pawn on d4, king on e3. I mean, black is slightly worse. Maybe it's a draw, but let's look at not playing bishop takes c6. I agree. I mean, I understand bishop takes c6 here. I really do. I mean, it seems like black has a lot more weaknesses. And this is still considered fine for black. But somehow when black plays this move and has the additional weaknesses, it seems like bishop takes c6. You know, this bishop is really buried here. Now, right? It's even worse. It's still Fedorovich, my friend. John calls it the pawn wall. He would play f6, knight e7, knight g6, d6, and eventually the bishop will get out. That's the whole theory. It all hinges on that bishop being able to get out or not. Once I had a game with Miles where he killed me. I think I did something like this. And then it was like e5 on World Chess Network. Although I beat him once in Rossolimo, I had another game where I lost badly. Something like this happened. Like, I don't remember how he got me to do this, but I ended up with that, you know? Like, how is my bishop going to get in the game? Am I going to play bishop d7, bishop e8, and bring it out to h5? So, you got to be careful. I understand bishop takes c6 better there. But here, let's say rook e1 or c3. Both are probably like good. Now what does black do? I mean, I know this is a line, this is a main line, right? Then you take, but this is a different story now. Budget guy, welcome. This is totally different. You know, now we take with the d pawn, and it's a standard line. White has these plans to like undermine black's pawn structure with, maybe that's how Fischer sacked the pawn, right? Wasn't directly in this position, but later. The first game between Spassky and Fischer, he did some kind of b4 wing gambit. I don't remember exactly the position. Maybe it was like this, actually. Yeah, there it is. So I have some brain cells left. Spassky took with the b pawn, and Bobby like played b4. I think that was the first game. That was sensation. It was a sensation. But it's not usual to take with the b pawn at this point. I think once you've played e5, it's just considered good for white. So that was the most interesting game from that match. Bobby introduced this idea. People are excited. But I mean, it's normal to take with a d pawn. Spassky was probably not well prepared. But I don't really like e5. You know, is that my only option? So I'm trying to avoid playing e5. So this is garbage. We can do knight h6 again. Maybe. Try to get you to transpose. a6 is... Once I saw like Nesmedinov versus Shamkovich, where Shamkovich did something like that. It's in Nesmedinov's collected games. I was like, dude, this is the most unprincipled move ever. What's wrong with knight d4? Well, it's... I mean, the pawn gets dragged to d4 and can be traded off, I guess. I mean, hypothetically, like here, 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 here. If this happens, you don't have a center anymore, you know? I mean, so you can say goodbye to... Or you can have like the worst Grunfeld in the history of the world or something with no counterplay. Imagine like playing the Grunfeld where you don't have a c-pawn to undermine white center. Like, good luck with that. I mean, I suppose it's possible to play this, but I don't like it. I've had games where I did stuff like that and it just didn't go well. I mean, it happens a lot in the closed Sicilian. So I think the best for black has to be knight f6. But now we're in a very specific variation. This was my game with Schieberspieler. We had a game with Hayes-Miro and Schieberspieler. They both played c3, I castled, white played d4, and black played d5. I played d5, and this seems okay. Schieber, you played like pawn takes pawn? Or e5, knight e4, bishop takes c6, takes, knight on bd2. It's like professional move order. But I don't think this is necessarily... You think you played c3? Maybe. Yeah. Isn't that what I'm saying? Well, I mean, maybe. What? Well, okay, but it like transposed. Whatever. It transposed the same position. d4, whatever. So, but my question is, I guess, is there another option? Let's see. Rook e1, castles. But maybe the other line is better. Like, rook e1 gives you another option, right? To play e5. What about this variation? Yeah. So this is the big question. You have the additional option here with rook e1 to play e5. Right. On c3 they can play e5. But I mean, I think those positions are a little bit better for white. And you should probably be okay with that. This seems to be critical. And like black is left with a very difficult decision where I hate taking this. It either builds white center or opens up file. So black has to like waste time and play this. I think I remember like Zoli Varga playing this with white in some GM tournament I played in, where he got like knight e4, knight f6 check. That's somehow a variation. Bishop takes c6. D takes, knight e4, right? And then threatening this. So if black, I guess Varga's opponent was like b6, knight f6 check. Something like this happened. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's not that bad for black. That's the thing. King f8. And you have to go back. And now black can play however. I mean, this is the thing though. Like if you do bishop g4, h3, is that not the best move? d3? Tricks. Tricks. It's possible to take this pawn. Wow. Kramnik. Yeah, h3 drops the pawn. But I was going to say, is there another way for black to play here? Bishop takes, d takes, knight e4. Yeah, knight e6. Okay. And now we're stuck. Kramnik Kasparov 1996. You know, there's a lot of lines in English. This happens with colors reversed. There's theory from the other perspective. But I'm not happy about my bishop. It's a good defender. Well, now we have this, right? Now, whoever suggested knight d4 earlier is happy that that's a good idea. Otherwise, I don't know what we're going to do. At some point, maybe knight d4 trading pieces. I mean, ultimately, like, black... What do we do? b6 or something? Bishop e3. Knight d4. I don't see any household names here. Jesse Cry losing with black. You wouldn't think like Becerra would play the Rossolimo. Very strong tactical player. But he's not a household name. Jesse's a philosopher. Former roommate of mine. Well, just for one tournament. He divorced me for snoring. Left me holding the bag. But yeah, I'm not 100% comfortable with black here. Obviously, this is like safer if you trade that bishop off, theoretically, but this pawn is hanging, so gotta play b6 or knight e6. Let's say b6. This variation check, king f8, knight back, and now we can get rid of the bishop. Kramnik, Dubov, Alexeyev. But white's just a little better. The problem with the Chess Dojo is that there's two people who are claiming that name. Jesse created the Chess Dojo stream with some other guys, and there's also this national master from New York, John MacArthur, here on lichess, who calls himself Chess Dojo. Now there has to be like a copyright battle or something. Everybody wants to be, they want to be the Chess Dojo. Who's the real Chess Dojo? But whatever it is, black made a small concession here, so I think this is okay for white. But I mean, this is what I'm looking at playing for black, honestly. Because honestly, I was playing a kind of bad line. You know, bishop e5, d6. There are a lot of dangerous variations for black in this. You know, I really need to have a secondary option. And I don't particularly like these lines with e6. And if you don't like the lines with e6, then we have to play g6. Although, the other move worthy of mention is knight f6. Like, this is kind of weird. This is how I got the bad game against Miles, I'm thinking. That doesn't make sense either. Maybe I did something crazy, like I played e6 on the next move. I feel like this was how... I couldn't have done that, though. I don't remember how I did that. How I got this structure. Like, in this game, somehow this happened, but that doesn't make sense. Like, there was some online banter game, and I ended up with a structure like this. But his pawn had to be on e5. Maybe he played e5 early? Bishop takes, pawn takes, e5. I don't understand how I could have gotten such a bad position. Like playing this or something? I mean, that's ridiculous. I must have been out of my mind. I don't understand how I let that happen. But this is another interesting line. Yes, well, I mean, I used to play e6 on move 2, dongers. And you don't have to worry about it. I think there's something to be said for that. You know, e6 is a move that is the most... well, because it avoids the Rossolimo, I think it makes it the most attractive move for avoiding anti-Sicilians. You still have to worry about c3. You still have to worry about stuff like b3. But, you know, there's still the King's Indian attack. But cutting out the Rossolimo does seem worth it. Ariel Mangarini played this against me. You got to deal with that. But okay, the discussion point here was supposed to be the Rossolimo. So what do you think about this, Schieberspieler? Like, there's a lot of games with knight c3, queen c7. I mean, I'm honestly surprised black can get away with this. You know? What do I think? What's the best anti-Sicilian line against e6? Yeah, I would say the c3. I mean, ask Vida Levente. I think that Levy had to give up playing the c3 Sicilian because he was too predictable. But it seems to me like that was easily the most annoying. There's no question. Because when you play e6, you're pretty restricted. You can play the French, or you can play relatively limited number of variations. I mean, honestly, you wouldn't think this would be okay for black. Statistically, it looks okay. And the other question is, what about bishop takes c6 here? If you give up your bishop in return, white's just slightly better. This looks really, really weird. Bishop h5. Damn. Andreikin, Wang Yu, Wang Hao. I don't know, I would be unhappy here. Why is black jumping through all these hoops with a weird position? I mean, what is this? What is this good for? I mean, why play this position with black? I don't really get it. It just doesn't look... It's just like a weird exchange Roy Lopez or something. I don't see the appeal for black here. No thank you. So I guess after d takes d3, seems like a good line for white. That would be what I would recommend. The bishop will be useful one day. What day is that, man? Like throwing it at your opponent after the game or something? As a weapon? That's the only use I could see for this bishop in the long run. Like when you sign the score sheet that you lost, you just like pick it up and you fling it at him. Hope that the tip of it is really sharp. While you're losing the whole game, you can sit there like sharpening with a pencil sharpener the end of your bishop and just throw it at him. I had an opponent do that to me in the New York Open. This Indonesian guy. Not his bishop, but his score sheet. He actually like flinged it at me in my face. After he lost like a long game, 100 move game or something like that. I always like change the story. I started to make up funny exaggerated things, like he wove it into like a Chinese star, you know, made out of paper, and spun it at me. But no, I don't like this. This is what I would recommend for you. I don't see a future for that bishop. Groveling for a draw, max. So, yeah, this is our recommendation. G6, castles, bishop G7, and then rook E1. I suppose you have other moves though, and I don't know that this is bad. So, Shebrew Spieler and I had this game where I guess his move order was C3, knight F6, rook E1, castles, D4. Oh. Hey, it's Miro played H3 against me. Why don't you play it like this, like a Spanish? Do you like D4 better than H3? What about this position? It's too subtle for you? I like this. I don't like it for black. You know, you play the Sicilian too, right? I mean, I don't play the Sicilian, so I can play the black side of the Spanish. You've got to really appreciate that. While there are some strong players who play both the Spanish and the Sicilian, especially like top grandmasters, Kramnik or someone like that, many Sicilian players don't play E4, E5, and I think against players like that, this is sort of ideal. I feel very uncomfortable when I'm forced to play something that is basically a Spanish. Like E5 is the main move here. I'm like, damn, I didn't want to play the Spanish when I woke up today. I thought I was playing the Sicilian. That's feels like I wish I had another option here instead of playing E5. Again, I don't like this. So what does that leave us with after H3? For the Sicilian player who doesn't want to play the Spanish, I mean, one thing is D6. That looks like the most natural move in the world, but after that, you're in center land. That's just good for white. I guess white's just slightly better after D4 if you play D6. So what other options are there? If I was like white in the English, I could probably play knight E8. Tal versus some guy in 1980. Chom played this in 74. But this is obviously like pushing the envelope, right? We're black. We can't get away with being white here. We're down a tempo. Chom made a draw against Janza. That guy made a draw. A 2350 made a draw against Tal in 1980 with 98. That's pretty impressive. Tal at 2705, probably his like peak rating. Nice job, dude. But Queen C7, I guess. Queen C7 is an option. It's just kind of tough for black. So that would be my recommendation for white. Anyway, guys, I gotta go soon. Cheapersville, you're not streaming, right? Today, you're gonna be back on Friday. Appreciate everybody hanging out with me. I'm gonna raid, see who's on. Nobody else is on. Fedamaster. We'll raid Fedamaster. I gotta go, guys. Gotta work. We will be back tomorrow night with subscriber stream. Don't forget, if you are a subscriber to the stream, we go over games. Subscriber submitted games. We only have a couple of games so far. So for tomorrow night's stream at 6:30, I'd appreciate it if we could get some submissions. Astrobate some of the regulars. All right, guys. I'm gonna take off for now. I gotta go work. You just sent me a game on lichess to my account. I'll see you guys later. I am out of here. I'm going to raid the Fedamaster. Someone in sound, welcome. Thank you, guys. Dongers, just send me the game on lichess. See you guys later. Have a great one. Bye-bye.